It is the question everybody wants to know. When will the Magic be able to start planning trips to Western Conference cities in June? When the Magic's championship window opens today on Locked On Magic.
You are Locked On Magic, your daily Orlando Magic podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And you are indeed Locked On Magic. Today is September 26th. It will be September 27th, 2024. My name is Philip Rosenreich. I'm the senior writer over at OrlandoMagicDaily.com. You can, of course, find me on Twitter at PhilipRR_OMD. Before we go any further, for those of you watching or listening in the state of Florida, please be safe for the remainder of the storm. Hurricane Helene. The worst stuff is west of us here in Orlando, so I'm perfectly fine. But you may see my lights flicker a little bit. I am recording in the middle of a hurricane. But please be safe as we ride out this very, very powerful hurricane. Appreciate everyone who's been able to listen. And don't worry, I am perfectly safe here in my compound overlooking the city of Orlando. On today's episode of Locked On Magic, though, the less important stuff, we're going to answer the ultimate question. When will the Orlando Magic's championship window open? If it's not this year, when is it? We'll get to that on today's episode of Locked On Magic. Before doing that, we want to thank you again for making Locked On Magic part of your day every day, especially in the middle of a storm. No matter when you listen to us, whether it's first thing in the morning, whether it's right we upload, we truly appreciate you making Locked On Magic part of your day every day. Remember, this great Locked On podcast covering every single team in the NBA. To search for Locked On and the team you're looking for, the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. Today's episode of Locked On Magic is brought to you by FanDuel. You could start the season with a big return on FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet, and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. ESPN does this every year. They come out with the future power rankings, which is very nebulous and very opinion-based. But the future power rankings are at least a checkup of where the team is at and how the team is developing, especially a young team like the Orlando Magic. And, I saw this yearly article come across the desk or come across the wire or I logged on to ESPN.com and I saw it because no one uses wires anymore. I got excited because for the first time in a decade, the Orlando Magic's progress and their young players aren't theoretical. For the first time, not only do the Magic have a bright future, but seemingly a bright present. And what the future power rankings try to do, or at least I think what they're aiming to do, is to envision who the best teams in the league are going to be 3 years from now. It's essentially just like, let's spin things over to like the next wave of contracts and figure out where teams are going to rank. And rightfully, the Orlando Magic are better. They were number 23 last year, which I think a lot of us were upset about. Go check the archives. I may have commented on it. And are now ranked number 11. Up 12 spots. This is a testament to the work that the Magic have done on the floor and the belief in what they have accomplished already. They're up to number 11, and that really does feel like the floor for the next 3 years. Because if the Magic are as good as we think they're going to be, they'll be better. Of course, there's disappointment. They're not ranked higher, and there may be some reasons about that. They're ranked 13th in players, and maybe there's still some questions about Paolo Banchero and how the offense comes together. They're ranked 10th in draft picks. They have all of their draft picks, but not really a ton of extra draft picks. Our draft cash is good, but they're like in the second tier of teams. They're not the Thunder. They're not the Jazz. They're not even the Nets, who have a ton of future draft picks. Among the young teams that the Magic are kind of compared to a lot, the Oklahoma City Thunder are the top team in the future power rankings. The Houston Rockets are 7th. A lot of faith in their management. If you look at their rankings, and they have this huge draft cash, even if they don't have the runaway star. Jabari Smith Jr. really came on strong at the end of his sophomore season. Alperen Şengün is a fantastic center option. They got players. Houston's going to have a really good year. And, of course, the San Antonio Spurs are ranking well. They're, I think, 11th. I think they're one spot ahead of the Magic because they have Victor Wembanyama, and that goes a long way. And, of course, the Spurs have a lot of capital. Of note, then, this is what I actually took more interest in. The Magic are ranked 4th among Eastern Conference teams. The Celtics, the Knicks, and the Sixers are the only teams ahead of them 3 years from now. Yes, they rank the Magic ahead of the Indiana Pacers, which I think is a really good thing. That's perhaps suggesting that Paolo Banchero is going to be better, or Franz Wagner and Paolo will be better than Tyrese Halliburton. Go back and listen to that episode. This is both encouraging news and discouraging news, because it tells us that, yes, there is a lot of belief in the Magic, but look, no one's going to pretend. There are not 12 contenders in the league every year. There are not 12 teams every year that believe they can win a title. There are maybe 6, maybe 7. We can look at the list this year. Boston thinks they can win the title. OKC thinks they can win the title. Minnesota, Denver, New York probably. Milwaukee probably does. I don't think they will. Philadelphia certainly believes. We're at like 6 or 7. Maybe the Clippers still do. I don't think the Clippers will. The Lakers certainly do. I don't think they will. The NBA is fairly predictable. You can see who's going to win the title. And essentially what the ESPN Future Power Rankings are saying is patting the Magic on the back, saying, y'all did a good job. You're better, but you're not a title team yet. And that's fair. Like, that's fair. The Magic's offense has got to get a lot better. We spent a lot of minutes on this podcast discussing the various criticisms of Paolo Banchero. Did an episode on it 3 days ago now. They run together. I'm sorry. There's still a lot of questions about how the Magic piece things together. And ultimately, I think it is a fair criticism to say that the Magic took their shot with salary cap room, got Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, not a small move, by the way. I think people are underplaying that move a little bit. They got Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. And then they ran a lot of their roster back. Well, there's no more cap room available for the Magic. They have draft picks, but not enough to go after anyone they want and still have some extra in reserve. That Denver pick expires this year. And I think the Magic will have to be aggressive and maybe do something short-term with that Denver pick if they don't plan on using it. Judging by how much we're going to struggle to find minutes for Tristan da Silva and Jed Howard, the Magic probably don't really need a spare draft pick. And that could be something that they look to move. This is the problem then for the Magic, because their path to win a championship, look, their path to win a title always starts with Paolo Banchero and Franz Wagner. It always starts with your best players. But in reality, while I think the Magic are in a better position to make trades and fix things through trades, I don't think they're stuck in any way. They really only have one big bite at the apple, because their draft assets are ample, but still very limited. They can't afford to trade 5 draft picks like the Knicks did, unless they're desperate, unless they're really going in on something. They don't have that capability. They don't have certainly the draft capital that the Thunder, the Rockets have. And even the Spurs to some extent have. Their ability to go out and make major trades is significantly better than Orlando's. Not that Orlando can't make those deals, and Orlando's got a head start on both of them. The Thunder are in their own class, and they're going to be looking at their own things, but the Magic have a head start on Houston and San Antonio. So that window to make that deal before Houston and San Antonio start throwing their weight around, and certainly when Wembanyama is going to speed things up for the Spurs because he's really good, that's going to be a big impediment for Orlando. But Orlando's ultimate project depends on internal development. And if you can't tell by how everybody's talked about the Magic this offseason, it's still a bit of a wait-and-see game. When we look at these opinion polls and these opinion pieces and these opinion analyses, everyone is still trying to figure out who this Magic team is. Howard Beck had his kind of like future power rankings, or his study of purpose, his purpose rankings, his purpose power rankings, teams that know exactly what they're trying to do. And he put the Magic kind of in that second or third tier of teams that generally know what they're doing, but the picture's still a little cloudy. honestly, like that was the best way. I think that was the best way to describe where the Magic are. The Magic are still figuring out who they are and figuring out what they're trying to be and what they need to be successful with the players that they have. And until they figure that out, and last year helped, this year's going to help too. It's okay for the Magic to still be gathering information. It's not bad to be in the spot that the Magic are in. But until they figure these things out, the championship window is going to remain closed. We are not going to be openly talking about championships. But I want to make this important point too. The Magic's championship window is opening. And the fact of the matter is, all these future power ranking stuff are great. But championship windows in this league open very quickly. And that's really what the Magic are waiting for. I'll chat a little bit about how the Magic opened that championship window coming up here in just a moment. But first, today's episode of Locked On Magic is brought to you by FanDuel. Hey, NFL fans, I see you waving over there. You can start the season with a big return, which doesn't happen in the NFL anymore because of that silly kickoff rule. And you can do that on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. And the best part is you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. FanDuel has so many great offers and lines, including already for the NBA. Orlando favored to win the Southeast Division, -140. Over under 47.5 wins. Essentially, do you think the Magic are going to have a better record this year than they did last year? Magic +1 at Miami against the Miami Heat. Should be a great time at the Casillas Center 1 month from now. A little bit less than a month from now. We're getting there, kids. We're getting there, of course, with training camp opening on Tuesday. FanDuel also has you covered with football as well. College football, UCF now favored by 14.5 over Colorado. Should be a fun time at the Bounce House. Really anything you want, FanDuel has it. And again, you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com, America's #1 sportsbook. We want to thank you for making Locked On Magic part of your day every day. For your next listen, be sure to check out the Locked On NBA podcast. There is no offseason in the NBA, and Locked On NBA provides daily basketball analysis from national and local experts in 30 minutes or less. No one keeps you as informed and entertained as Locked On NBA. It's available on YouTube or wherever you get podcasts. It's all part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So this gets us then to that ultimate question. The question you're probably asking me, the question that Magic fans are antsy to hear. So I'm going to give you an answer, or at least half of an answer. When will the Magic's championship window open? When are we going to be able to discuss, realistically, making plans in June to see the Larry O'Brien trophy? Obviously, there's a little bit of a story here. There's a date that everyone's eyeing, 2030. Alex Martin's back in 2016 gave an interview for a project by the Orlando Sentinel, imagining Orlando in 2030, and said unequivocally that the Magic would win a championship by 2030. And of course, in 2016, that was a ridiculous thing to say. 2030 is actually very realistic. If the championship window is not open by 2030, something has gone a little haywire. Something's gone a little aside. The Magic should be competing for championships by 2030. That's only 5 years from now. But this is the main point I want to make. Championship windows open very quickly. And really, the only thing holding the Magic back is that same discussion we've had over and over and over and over again this offseason. The way everyone's tried to put holes in the balloon of Paolo Banchero's game. Like letting little bits of air out, but enough that you start to see the whole thing sag a little bit. Enough to make people afraid to hop on. That life raft has a few holes in it. It doesn't have any major holes in it, but they don't like that whizzing sound. Of course, it's ridiculous to think that Paolo Banchero is a sinking life raft. He's 21 years old. He got significantly better in his second year. He showed up in a big way in the playoffs. There's a lot of growth for this kid. And the fact of the matter is, we can talk about all of these things. And yes, the Magic need to add shooting and add playmaking and add all these things. But the Magic, I think, do have clarity of purpose. I think they do know what this season needs to be and what their next step needs to be to begin to open that window. And it is pushing Paolo Banchero to be a superstar, to be the best player he can be. The bottom line is this. The championship window opens when Paolo Banchero becomes an all-NBA player. Paolo Banchero is probably going to be a perennial all-star. There's going to be very little excuse for him to miss an all-star game for the rest of his career. I am looking at the all-star list and the players that I'm projecting to be an all-star. I just do not see a way, even after adding Paul George to the mix. I do not see a way, as long as the Magic are competitive in the Eastern Conference, that Paolo Banchero will not be an all-star this year. I would put it at 85%. He's an all-star every year. Bank on it. Go to FanDuel and see if they offer that. I don't know if they do. The next step, though, is to be one of the 15 best players in the league. Because at the end of the day, you go as far as your best player will take you. And as you know, again, Paolo took the team pretty far in the playoffs, considering all the weaknesses on this roster, especially his own weaknesses. He overcame a lot of stuff. And those championship windows open fast because of that. I know I did this episode telling you who you should be comparing Paolo Banchero to. Paolo Banchero's first 2 years in the league were better than Carmelo Anthony's first 2 years in the league. But like I noted, Carmelo Anthony took a leap in efficiency, especially in his third season. And that's the kind of leap the Magic are waiting for from Paolo and from Franz. They need Franz to take a leap as well. And when that happens, that's when we'll start talking about titles. Because that means that Paolo is an indefensible player. You can't defend him. And so it's just about, can he make the right decisions? Again, it's part of what this project is let's teach Paolo how to make the right decisions with the ball in his hands, because he's going to have the ball in his hands a lot, as any star would. He's going to have a 28, 29, 30% usage rate. Franz Wagner's going to have a 26, 27, 28% usage rate. It's about their decision-making and improving their decision-making and how they and their understanding of how to make everybody on the roster better. That's the game. That's the ticket. That's the way the Magic push forward. But obviously, we got to see it in action. We've got to see Paolo do this. And that's going to be the challenge this season. That's going to be the whole purpose of the season. But your championship window happens quick. Just look at Magic history. Forget the other teams. In Magic history, the Orlando Magic draft Shaquille O'Neal in the 1992 draft. Everyone knew he was going to be a superstar. He immediately made the team a 41-41 team. They lost the 8th seed in the playoffs on the fourth tiebreaker to the Indiana Pacers. Obviously, they get the number 1 pick. Talent helps. But just imagine how quick that rise was. 41 wins in Shaq's rookie year. 52 wins, I believe, and the 4th seed in his second year. And then, I think it was 56, 57 wins, the top seed in an NBA Finals appearance in his third year. That is a steep ascent. That was fast. So let's take another example. Dwight Howard and his first playoff run. Go 36-46 each of his first 2 seasons. Magic weren't really in the playoffs his rookie year. Second year, they were much more in the race. First year, they were in the playoff hunt on the outside of it. Grant Hill had a sports hernia, and I believe Hedo Turkoglu broke his arm, and that knocked the Magic out of the playoff race at the very end of the season, like in March. Second year, they come out slow. The Magic dump Steve Francis. They trying to start turning the keys over to Dwight and Jameer. They have this great run to finish the season. I know I compared the 2023 season a lot to the 2006 season, Dwight's second season. They missed the playoffs or eliminated in the last week of the season. Like the last Sunday before the season ends, the season ended on a Wednesday. The following year, they go 40 and 42. They go 41 and 41 or 40 and 42. I forget. Where the 8th seed, get their first playoff exposure, Pistons sweep them. The next year, they obviously hire Stan Van Gundy. They sign Rashard Lewis. They win the Southeast Division. They win their first playoff series in a dozen years. And then they get beat in the second round by the Pistons because the Pistons are just terrible and we hate them. And then 2009, of course, they make the finals. And all of a sudden, now you're in the championship window. Everybody felt that pressure. 2010 was probably Dwight's best team. They fall in the Eastern Conference Finals. 2011, things crack and fall apart. Windows, the point here is championship windows open as quickly as it seems like they close. And you will know when that championship window is open. Trust me, you will know it. And I think it is fair to say that this year, that championship window is not open. We are not like, would it be great if the Magic compete for a championship this year? Absolutely. But based off last year and just not trying to predict too much about this year, the goal is still to get better and see how Paolo can get better and see where these guys are at. And if they're ready, they're ready. But the Magic weren't willing to put all their chips on them being ready quite yet. They still have the options to do a lot of different things, but we don't know what they're ready for. And like those two previous Magic teams, the Magic made the playoffs last year, had a really good showing, and now the trick is, how do you be better? Can this team be better? And that's going to say a lot about where Paolo Banchero's at. That's going to say a lot about Paolo. And that's going to be the big challenge this year. Can Paolo Banchero lift that championship window? Can he open that championship window? I don't know what kind of windows he has. He has veranda windows or pull-up windows. I don't know. But can Paolo open those windows? Because that's ultimately where we're heading. I don't think it's this year. I think Paolo will be better, but I think there will still be mistakes. I think this is still a little bit of a developing team and a patient rebuild. But I suspect that next year, that window will look a little more open than it does this year. And at some point within the next 2 seasons, 2026, 2027, the Magic will be competing for championships. It's coming. It may not be now. It may not be this year, but it's coming. And a big part of that is one of the biggest question marks I have for the season. Before we get to Media Day, let's talk about young players whom the Magic are asking a lot of coming up here in just a moment. But first, today's episode of Locked On Magic is brought to you by PrizePicks. PrizePicks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with more than 5 million active members. PrizePicks is the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. All you do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. With so many sports going on or getting ready to start, now is the time to get in on PrizePicks. In fact, every week in September, 1 Caleb Williams passing yard gets you 1 win on PrizePicks. It's essentially a free space. That's right. Only 1 yard gets you an automatic win every football weekend in September. 4 weeks of free W's. Don't miss a deal on PrizePicks because it's gone when September ends. PrizePicks is the only real money daily fantasy platform with an injury insurance policy too, so that your lineups stay in play even if one of your players gets injured. If your player, in fact, leaves in the first half and does not return, PrizePicks keeps your picks alive. They're not going to count that against you. PrizePicks puts their members first, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. When your pick hits, you get your money in as quick as 15 minutes. PrizePicks is the daily fantasy game that I play. I really do enjoy playing it. With basketball getting ready to start up again, I'm probably going to get back into PrizePicks. You can actually mix and match different sports. It really lets you control what you want to watch, who you want to be cheering for, who you want to be cheering against, and so much more. So, download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONNBA and get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code LOCKEDONNBA on PrizePicks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. PrizePicks, run your game. Okay, this is our last show before the season starts. No, I don't know if we're going to count Sunday, but our next show is our big season preview, is our big kind of last statement before we get to Media Day preview, talking about everything about this team. But I wanted to make one more kind of off-season-ish point as we get ready for training camp and before we dive into the daily nitty-gritty of having news every day. Yes, that's the best part. We get news every single day from here on out, from here until June, really till July. There's going to be something to talk about every day. It's great. It's fun. I'm no longer stretching for content. But one thing that does have me concerned about this team, one big question mark, and it's a big question mark that's going to go a long way to determining this team's success this year, and really, to some extent, Jeff Weltman's success. The Magic are leaning on a lot of really young players to step up, and really, especially to step up in a skill, in a subset that they need really, really badly. There is no getting around this. There's no changing this. There's no two ways around this. The Orlando Magic's success this year depends on a lot of really young players. And I'm not talking about Paolo and Franz. They're both really young. And Jalen Suggs. They're all really young. I'm talking about guys who are unproven. Completely unproven. Guys like Caleb Houston, who got lots of playing time last year, but still only averaged about 4 points per game. Played only 30 games of 12 minutes or more last year. A guy who had some incredible highs, including that really strong game against the Atlanta Hawks where he scored 25 points, made 7 of 10 from beyond the arc. But a lot of struggles to find consistency. Caleb Houston is the closest thing the Magic have to a volume shooter right now. He had 4 games last year where he took more than 10 threes. The Magic actually kind of need that. The problem was, outside that 7 for 10 game, didn't make a lot of those threes. Like 3 for 10, 2 for 10, 1 for 7. The Magic trust Caleb Houston. He has the size. He's a good defender. He works hard. There's a reason why they gave him the nickname The Machine. But the Magic need more from him. They need consistency. They need to be able to rely on him if he's going to be in the rotation. The same could be said for Jet Howard. Jet Howard was drafted to be a volume shooter, to be someone that the Magic could throw into a game like Terrence Ross, and his job is just to put up every 3 that he sees. And look, he had a great summer league, shooting 10 for 21 in summer league, if I'm not mistaken. Just a fantastic run. 7 three-pointers per game. Looked better defensively, looked better as a playmaker. You saw why the Magic drafted him. But he also only played like 60-something minutes in the NBA for the Orlando Magic. And while his G League numbers look really good, and I want to emphasize that. He was 7 for 25 from 3 and 67 total NBA minutes last year. He shot 37.7% on 9.5 3-pointers per game during the regular season for the Osceola Magic. He can put up shots. We all know he can shoot, but can he do it at an NBA level? And of course, we have Tristan da Silva, a rookie. And while Tristan da Silva was 10 for 17 on 3-pointers in summer league and looked very comfortable at the NBA 3-point line, while he has shown that he will improve as a shooter, going from 26.7% as a freshman to 39.5% as a senior, back-to-back 39% 3-point shooting seasons. Da Silva is still a rookie. We don't know if he is NBA ready. We hope he is. I think he is. And then, of course, you're relying on Jalen Suggs, matching that 39% shooting season that he had last year after his struggles from beyond the arc. You have Anthony Black, who's expected to continue to show 3-point gains, just like he did last year. Then you have Franz Wagner having to bounce back from his poor 3-point shooting season. And Paolo Banchero looking more like playoff Paolo from 3 than regular season Paolo. He shot about 33% from 3. The point of all this, and if there's a reason to be skeptical about the Magic, this is the reason. Like Kevin Pelton acknowledged it when he ran his numbers and said there's still a lot of noise because the bad years for the Magic are still baked into the numbers for this year's Magic team, and that's why he has them 8th and 43.5 wins. That's not what's going to happen. They're going to be comfortably over 500. They should be. And they're probably going to be comfortably the 6th or 7th seed. Like, I don't see them falling further below than that. But the point is the Magic haven't proven anything. And while, yes, it is no guarantee that Caleb Houston, Tristan da Silva, or Jet Howard play at all this year. Gary Harris is still there. He's reliable, does the job. Anthony Black has a lot on his plate, especially as a playmaker, and has to really grow and expand his game. That is a huge risk the Magic are taking this year. You know, we can debate the playmaker problems and the playmaker things. The Magic are putting a lot of faith in the second year Anthony Black to take on a role that they didn't even really test him with last year. A lot of people are criticizing the Denver Nuggets right now, and rightfully so with Nikola Jokic. Their championship window's open, and they let a starter walk away, and nobody's certain that Peyton Watson or Christian Brown are ready to step into that role. They could literally close. That's how championship windows close. They picked a lot of young players over proven veterans while their best players in his prime, and nobody knows if they're going to deliver. In fact, there's a lot of skepticism. Frankly, it sounds like, and you can listen to Locked On Nuggets for more on this, it sounds like that belief in the young players is the central disagreement between the coaching staff and management. The Magic are still a developing team. They're fine living and dying off of young players and how they play. But yes, it is. If the Magic's ambition is to be a home court advantage team, it is a huge risk that Anthony Black, who did not play any point guard last year, is the team's backup point guard. That him and Cole Anthony are essentially the team's backup point guard. It is a huge risk that the Magic are betting on one of Caleb Houston, Jet Howard, or Tristan da Silva being able to supplement and essentially play the Joe Ingles role and be a reliable three-point shooter on a team that does not have a lot of reliable three-point shooting. They are betting a ton on internal growth, and that is a good bet for where the Magic are at. That is a fine bet to make. But if it doesn't pan out, the Magic will have a lot of work to do to get where they want, to get back on track and back where they need to be. That's the thing about winning, though. We'll get back to the championship window. That's the thing about winning. It increases pressure on everybody. It increases the urgency and the need to perform on everybody. And you find out who can perform and who can't. Frankly, that's what the Magic are finding out this season. The Magic aren't quick to abandon any development project. But any of these guys struggle, and they will, because they'll need to find something to give them some stability that they don't have. And that might necessitate taking that first big risk as far as a trade or player acquisition. So far, they've been pretty by the numbers, by the book. Pretty safe. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope's going to help. Like, seriously. There's a lot of young players that the Magic are depending on this year. And that's a lot on the line for the Orlando Magic. That is a lot on the line for this team to go where they hope they can go. And yes, if they hit, then that championship window starts to open a whole lot wider pretty quickly. Again, like I said, those title windows open fast. And we're on the doorstep here. More house analogies. We're on the doorstep to starting this thing off. That's where we're going to conclude today. I want to thank you all again for listening to today's episode of Locked On Magic. Of course, find me on Twitter at @PhilipRR_OMD. Subscribe to the podcast and Apple Podcasts at your TuneIn, Himalaya, Google Play, Spotify, Odyssey, and all the places you download podcasts to your podcast-enabled listening device. For the latest on the Orlando Magic, be sure to check out OrlandoMagicDaily.com. Of course, follow us there on Twitter at @OMagicDaily. And for even more Orlando Magic content, be sure to check out my Patreon page, the Orlando Magic Hub, at patreon.com/Orlando Magic Hub. As always, thank you for your support. Now that you're done listening to me, be sure to check out the Locked On NBA podcast with local experts. Keep you updated daily on the biggest storylines ahead of the season. Find Locked On NBA on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Couple quick notes before we close out here. First, if you're listening to this on Thursday night or early Friday, I hope that you stayed safe during the storm, during Hurricane Helena. Thankfully, power stayed on and nothing too bad when happened. My little chandelier here has been shaking all recording. So if I've been looking up, I've been like mesmerized by it, even though I'm indoors. That I hope everyone stayed safe. Hope you got through the storm okay. And please help your neighbors if they need any help. Secondly, I'm sure our friends at Locked On Bucks are covering some of this too, but the Orlando Magic did lose a member of their family today. Joe Wolf, unfortunately, passed away. Joe Wolf spent one season with the Orlando Magic in the 1995-96 season, was a fan favorite, mostly because, at least from my memory, as a 6 or 7 year old at the time, because Paul Porter howled like a wolf every time he came onto the floor. So one final for Joe Wolf. May his memory be a blessing to his fans, his family, and all those who knew him. We'll be back, though, after the weekend, after the crazy day at the Bounce House, but which hopefully Jamal Mosley will not be super angry about on Monday morning. But we'll be back Sunday evening, Monday morning to preview Media Day and get you ready for the start of the Orlando Magic season. Everything on the line and so much more. I'm excited for it. I'm sure every Magic fan is too. Until then, have a great weekend, everybody. Stay safe. And for Orlando Magic Daily and Locked On Magic, this has been Philip Rossman-Wright. We'll see you all again next time for another episode of Locked On Magic.